Round 2 of the NHL playoffs just keeps surprising all of us. We just saw a team complete back-to-back sweeps and become the first team in 39 years to start 8-0 in the playoffs since the best-of-7 four-round format began. We have a superstar completely rewriting his narrative of being a playoff ghost by leading the entire postseason in scoring. We got other superstars swimming in scuba gear just to get an advantage. Guys are getting sucker punched. Goalies are being targeted. It's the playoffs, baby, and the second round is electric. So let's break it all down in part 3 of our round 2 recap. So we start off with game 2 between the Habs and Sabres, which means we got to check in on the Buffalo faithful. What do they got going on this time? They got a kid, Baby Benson, beating the shit out of a Habs dummy. Truly beautiful to see. You got to teach him young, and Buffalo is doing it right there. Now, the start for the Habs in game 1 was no bueno. A little bit hungover from that game 7 win against Tampa, and they never quite recovered. Afterwards, a couple of the stars held themselves accountable. Lane Hudson was critical of his own play, and Cole Caulfield called himself out as well, talking about how he, as well as his teammates, expect him to be better. So, Montreal comes out of the gate on fire. Early on, the Canadiens get a look from the point, and how about this little slap pass from Caden Gooley? Who's today's Tippy Longstockings? It's Alex Newhook. He deflects one in, and the Habs are on the board early. Now, two major concerns about Buffalo's game in these playoffs. First is faceoffs. They are the worst faceoff team in the league, while Montreal is 10th. The Sabres win just 45% of their draws, which is some noodle arm behavior. They got to get in the gym, start winning draws, and doing a way better effort as a team there. So D-zone draw for Buffalo, McLeod versus Deneau. Deneau snaps this one back clean, and Matheson is going to send an absolute nipple towards the net. Just a seeing eye shot with traffic. Beats Alex Lyon off of a clean face-off win, and the Sabres are down by 2. Now, the second major concern for the Buffalo Sabres is their power play. In Game 1, it did go 2 for 3, but it has been awful all playoffs long. The Sabres have converted just 3 of 32 power play opportunities this postseason. In math terms, that pretty much means they are ass on the power play, but they also went 0 for 5 in this game, and again, it's all connected. Every power play starts with a face-off, which the Sabres usually lose, and then when that happens, they're forced to burn 15 to 30 seconds to try and re-enter the zone, and their entries are just not very good. They usually run a single drop back with Dahlin lugging the mail up ice and then dropping it back to either Zucker or Norris with speed, but neither guy really has overwhelming breakaway speed or elite talent to carve through a good entry defense on their own. So it's usually stuffed, or a quick pass to the wall isn't clean enough for the Sabres to confidently get possession, and so it goes back down the ice. But when that doesn't work, Dahlin will try and take it in himself, or the Sabres just do a 5-man entry all at once. That's what happens here. The first attempt is a drop back to Norris. It's kicked out to the wall to beat the first defender, but the pass isn't clean, so then Montreal sends it back down the ice. So Buffalo is like, fuck it, we're sending all 5 guys in on the next entry. So Dahlin zips it right up to Thompson. No drop back. They go to kick it out again. It's a failed entry. But all 5 Sabres get a bit horned up here, including Zucker, who's like, if we're going to suck on the power play, I'm going to take a soul with me. So boom, he lines up Dobson, but all 5 of the Sabres are below the hash marks. So Dobson takes a hit to make a play. It's beautiful. It's a break for Montreal, and this pass is just lovely. Jake Evans with a dish you'd only see in Italian cuisine. Perfect. Right to Newhook, and the Sabres power play screws them over again. But when they needed a spark, the one guy who's an animal right now for them is Zach Benson. He gets in on the forecheck and is just a dog on a bone. He knows the reverse is coming. Boom, Reddit.com. He picks it off, sends it to the point, and who's on the doorstep to finish it off? You betcha. It is the Benson burner himself, Benny and the Jets. He skated by Dobish and gives him a few chirps for the road, as well as the Sabres get one before the end of the third. But this is how you know it just ain't your night. The Sabres have the puck in the O-zone. It goes to Thompson, and he turns into Bambi on skates. Just a Looney Tunes ass fall. The legs just start shutting down. He spins out like an NASCAR, and Montreal comes back the other way on a 2-on-1 and buries this game. The Habs win big in Game 2. Dobish had another unreal performance, stopping 28 of 29, and now this is going back to Montreal. Another interesting thing to note is that they asked Tage Thompson whether he's dealing with an injury, to which he replied, "That is none of your business." All right, message received. So now we go to Game 3 between the Golden Knights and the Ducks. The series shifts to Anaheim. The Ducks played very well in Game 2, and they got an unbelievable chance here to take the series lead on home ice. Too bad Vegas comes out of the gate saying, not tonight. Stone to Eichel to Theodore within the first 2 minutes. It is 1-0 Vegas. Wakey, wakey, eggs and bakey. The Ducks are asleep to start the game. And also, this is a great example of how a slower team like Vegas can use delays and speed changes to negate the overall team speed of Anaheim. Stone is still a slower skater than my Nunna, but just stopping up inside the blue line forces this D to gap up while buying time for Eichel to get in deeper in the zone, and from there, it is money. All right. Now it's time to talk about the elephant in the room for Leaf fans, and that is the noted playoff wizard, Mitch Marner. He has been lights out for Vegas in these playoffs, and this guy does it all, including shorthanded, where, again, it's a speed change. He's heavily outnumbered here, 3-1. He stops up to force the Ducks to have to gap up, and in comes McNabb, who's there for the support, and he rips in the shorty. The Ducks don't even know what hit him, and it gets better, Leaf fans. Don't look away now. Vegas gets a power play. It's a broken play, and in comes Mitch Marner for the rebound, sticks with it, and buries. This is getting out of hand here in the first, and Mitch Marner is at the center of it. Vegas is making the Ducks look slow, and they do it again here with an active D in Theodore. He jumps up in the play to make it a 4-on-3, and this is crisp puck movement. They kick it out wide on the entry to suck in the D towards the wall, and then immediately put it back towards the middle to Theodore, and who's sitting there pretty on the back door? It is Mitch Marner, second goal of the game. This is an ass whooping that can only be topped by something we've never seen before. End of the second. Marner gets some space to walk out. He throws it on net, and it finds a way to squeak through Ville Husso, and there it is, the hat trick, the first of his career in the playoffs. How about this first stat? 9 postseasons in Toronto. He had 13 playoff goals total. 1 in Vegas. He's already got 6. And he's leading the playoffs and scoring to boot. This was always going to happen, by the way. Leaf fans knew he'd go on to win a Conn Smythe trophy as soon as he left Toronto. And as if these playoffs weren't already strange enough, now Mitch Marner is a certified playoff dog for the Vegas Golden Knights. They spank the Ducks 6-2 to take a 2-1 series lead. Now, before we move on, it's time to thank our friends over at SeatGeek for sponsoring today's video. Now, I'll be honest, I'm going to come clean. It was me who made the call to Gary to rig the draft in Leafs' favor. That way I can go back to Leaf games without wanting to claw my damn eyes out for them being so bad. And even better, I can get a great deal while doing so with SeatGeek. You know how it works by now. You browse seating on a scale of 1 to 10, look for the green, which indicates the best deals, and boom, you've got your tickets for a great price. They also got World Cup tickets on the app already, so you can jump all over those for a good price. And as always, SeatGeek hooked us up with some great deals as well. If you use the code HOCKEY2026, you can have 10% off your next pair of tickets. I use SeatGeek for every live event I go to. I may just use it to go to the NHL draft as well to see how the Leafs could possibly screw this up live and in person. And if you want a great deal on your next game or event, you can do so by downloading the app and using the code HOCKEY2026 in our description. So now we go to Game 4 between the Hurricanes and Flyers. Bust out the brooms because there's a potential sweep on the line here. Now, big news heading into this game is Matvei Michkov. He is scratched for the second time these playoffs. It has been a rough relationship between him and Coach Rick Tocchet. Get ready to learn KHL, pal, because he's in the doghouse when Philly needs a game the most. It's a hot start that is essential for the Flyers to get going. So how about Tyson Forrester? What a pass by Zegers here to see the forest from the trees. He steps down Broadway and he beats Freddie clean, low blocker. That is just not happening very often in these playoffs, and Philly gets a much needed hot start to make it 1-0. But Carolina, they just come at you in waves. Volume at the net is the name of the game. They outshoot every damn team they play, and so Philly was able to hold on to that lead until just a little bit over halfway through the second, where Jackson Blake, 2 first names, can't trust a guy with 2 first names, and he can't read his release either. Off the wall, he's going to beat Darth Vladar from range to make it 1-1, and this is all tied up. That second line, by the way, of Hall, Stankoven, and Blake has easily been their best. They've scored some massive goals for Carolina so far in this postseason. Then, a few minutes later, Carolina scores again, but right away, Vladar is throwing the hands up, which means it's time to call Gary. Do we have ourselves some goalie interference? Let's take a look. It looks like Carrier's ass cheek just grazes Vladar, which means you can't do that. No touching the goalie, so Gary says this one's coming back. We still have ourselves a tie game going into the third. Then we get a quick lesson on how 95% of playoff hockey is just being able to deal with forechecking pressure. So here Philly is able to get on Chatfield pretty quickly and make this a potential turnover. And you'll see, because of that disruption, Philly's F2 is going to dive in deep below the goal line, anticipating that they win this puck battle and cycle it down low. But this is what Carolina does so well. Look at the support right away to help with this 50-50. They got a center swinging low and a D on the wall to make this essentially a 3-on-1. And so when they get possession, they automatically have two Flyers trapped deep. It springs an odd man rush the other way, and boom, Logan Stankoven, the stanky leg, simply does it again. Carolina has a 2-1 lead. The nerves are now hitting Philly. Frustrations are boiling over at the Philly bench. You got Tocchet and Konechny getting into it, and Konechny says, settle down, watch this. Carolina was able to evade the pressure on the prior goal, but here Konechny comes barging in on the forecheck like he's got a damn warrant. He sends the puck out front to Alex Bump. Yeah, that's a real name, and he buries to tie this up. Ladies and gentlemen, this is going to OT with Philly's season on the line, but the Hurricanes, they'll just pick you apart. On the breakout here, Philly goes for the stretch pass. Carolina's in their 1-2-2, but Jacob Slavin, best stick in the league. He's just going to make a fantastic step up here to protect the red line. It's turned over, Hall to Jackson Blake, and there's just a little bit too much hot sauce on this shot for Darth Vladar. He can't catch it. It goes into the net, and Carolina sweeps the series, and they're the first team to start 8-0 in the playoffs since the best-of-7 four-round format began in 1987. The last team to start the playoffs with such dominance was the 1985 Wayne Gretzky-led Edmonton Oilers, who won their first 9 games before winning the Cup. The Hurricanes are just a machine right now. People want to say that they have some easy competition, but it's the NHL playoffs. You still got to beat your teams, and they're making everyone look like an utter joke right now. Now, because the NHL scheduling was made by Stevie Wonder himself, depending on when the Habs and Sabres series ends, Carolina could have close to 2 weeks off. So who knows? Maybe they join Philly on the trip to Cancun to get a little R&R in before the third round. Rest is certainly a good thing, but it could also work against them, because when you're playing this well and you're this dialed in, you almost don't even want the time off. Of course, time will tell if this will hurt or help the Canes, but right now they're sitting pretty, waiting for the third round. Then we go to the Wild versus Avs for Game 3. Colorado has a 2-0 series lead. This has been a weird one where Minnesota just hasn't found their game yet. Nathan MacKinnon has looked damn good, and that's probably because he spends his off days in scuba gear being dialed in. He's got the flippers on with the goggles. The dog takes his off-ice workouts seriously at the hotel pool in Minnesota. And as for Minnesota, they need a response. So going back to St. Paul, they put back in the wall. Jesper Wallstedt is back in the cage after an absolute circus in Game 1. Now, we said after last game, the Wild need to find a way to win the special teams battle, because beating the Avs 5-on-5 is incredibly hard. But this is a different circumstance here. In the first period, it's 4-on-4 hockey. Now, anytime you get 4-on-4 or 3-on-3, defensive coverages shift to a man-on-man. So everyone's got a man. And the best way to exploit one-on-ones is through speed differentials and exposing gaps. So watch here as Minnesota makes their way up the ice. Their two defensemen in Hughes and Faber are going to lead the attack. And look at Kaprizov. He's going to take a nice giant loop to not only gain speed, but intentionally be late to the play. So as Faber works in, Colorado is now trying to sort out their coverages in the D zone. So they have Hughes and Faber sorted out, but the far two are kind of in no man's land and flat-footed, with the other two Wild yet to have entered the zone. So as one enters, now Nelson attaches onto his man, but in comes Kaprizov with a whole head of steam, and his defender is now caught flat-footed with a huge gap advantage, and that's like trying to catch a moving train. The C's part, and there's the Karelian air coming right down the chute, untouched. That is 1-0 Minnesota. The devil is in the details, and we see it again on the power play. This time, it's a 4-on-3 for Minnesota. They get an unreal chance with Boldy on the doorstep, but Wedgwood, he sells out and launches his stick in the process to get there. It's blocked, but his stick flies into the corner, and you even see him look back and go, oh shit. That's not good. I'm going to need that. And so the puck will eventually funnel to Hughes, and this is just all awareness. He has a first look here, realizes Wedgwood doesn't have a stick, so he's like, no. I'm going to take full advantage of this. He circles back, opens up, Shakira hips. He gets Wedgwood moving right to left, and he literally goes stick side. Just a work of art to put Minnesota up 2-0 going into the second. Then again, Minnesota gets on the power play, and look at the puck movement to beat the aggressiveness of Colorado's penalty kill. They send a third forward up high to get Colorado's forward stretched out. So once Boldy sends this down the half wall, the seam has now opened up, to which Kaprizov takes full advantage by zipping it across the ice right away. Now, even though Zuccarello is not in a dangerous scoring spot, that pass across the seam forces Colorado's killers to have to back off and retreat back into their structure. That gives Zuccarello enough time to step in. Good things happen, and Minnesota goes up 3-0. After that, the Avalanche make a goalie change. Out goes Scotty Wedgwood, and in comes the other piece of wood in Mackenzie Blackwood. Now, the Avs do get another power play goal of their own from Nathan MacKinnon, which is his reward for trying to become a Navy SEAL in the hotel pool. But the Wild respond right back to make sure this game is out of reach, and that was pretty much all she wrote. The Wall of St. Paul was incredible. Wallstad made 35 saves on 36 shots, which is just outrageous. They won the special teams battle, and they make this a series, as it's now 2-1 for the Avs. So now we move on to Habs versus Sabres Game 3 series, all tied at once, heading back to the Bell Center. Two areas of Buffalo's game that was exposed in Game 2 was their faceoffs and inability to convert on the power play, but they decided to come out buzzing out of the gate here. So how about this for a bounce, eh? Off the backboard, right to Tage Thompson. He's got a wide open net for him to just tap it in, Happy Gilmore style. Why the hell not? Sabres are up 1-0. 53 seconds into the game. But Montreal was all over them early. They're lucky they had the Lion King in the net to make a couple of huge saves to keep the Sabres lead. But the Habs, they're eventually going to break through. Their forecheck swarms Buffalo. Puck pops out to Jake Evans. He stopped, but Alex Newhook has become Mario Lemieux the last few games for Montreal. He bangs home the rebound. This one is tied going into the second. Things are nice in Montreal, but one guy who hasn't been feeling it lately is Cole Caulfield. The 50-goal man has just one goal in his last 9 games, and this is how it's going for him right now. He gets a backdoor feed from Lane Hudson. It's on a platter, and he just shoots it wide. Madon, that is a nightmare situation. But Lane Hudson says, okay, pal, I got you. Don't worry. A few minutes later on the power play, he sees Greenway with no stick, drop down to a knee to try and block a shot. That is exactly what he wants. Whoop. See ya later. Greenway slides right into the Zamboni door while Hudson has everyone distracted. He sends it over to Caulfield and says, there you go. Try again, and this time he ain't missing. That is some nasty work. I'm going to go with the bona fide SeatGeek goal of the week on that one. That is huge for Caulfield and the Habs as they take a 2-1 lead. But the great thing for Montreal has been their depth in this postseason. The Suzuki line has struggled 5-on-5, but the depth has stepped up, and they do it again a few minutes later. Veleno to Bolduc into the back of the net. The Bell Center is losing it, and the game is starting to slip from Buffalo. So they're going to decide to get a little bit greasy and target the man who's given them problems, and that is Jakob Dobisch. Beck Malenstein drives the net, and he bulldozes Dobisch intentionally to try and get him riled up. That's going to draw a crowd, but Dobisch just skated away, just takes a couple of deep breaths, is zen, happy thoughts, tries not to get involved. Get that guy in the box, and the Habs make him pay. Slavkovsky with the big caboose net front tips this one in, and look at this from Dobisch. He's fired up. He does the one knee pumpernickel celly and then goes by the Sabres bench and gives them a few chirps. The hate is starting to build in this series. Buffalo does get one back on the power play to make it 4-2 before the end of the second, but again, Montreal's depth just keeps coming up big. Kirby Dach, the Dock Nest monster, chips in to make it 5-2, and the game was pretty much out of reach from there. Lots of rough stuff to close this one out as well. Yeah, Josh Norris throwing a punch while a guy's in a headlock, full-on recess behavior. Then Jack Guy at the end of the game has Carrick pinned up to the boards, straight up Batman interrogation style, and he just one-punches him with the glove on the jaw. He folds like a lawn chair, and I have a feeling this series is going to get a lot uglier. The Habs, they take a 2-1 series lead, and I think for Game 4, I'd expect that the Sabres go back to UPL same-day delivery, not because Lion is playing bad or anything like that, but simply because they need a vibe change, as the last thing that they want is to fall down in the series 3-1. Then finally, we had Game 4 between the Ducks and Golden Knights. Game 3 was the Mitch Marner show. Hat-trick performance, had Torts flat out saying that the narrative around Mitch Marner is bullshit and that the people in Toronto don't see the things he brings to the game. So overall, Vegas is feeling pretty good about themselves, but they are missing their captain, Mark Stone, for Game 4. So that's no bueno. The other aspect that I'm also unsure of for Vegas is Carter Hart. He can have an unbelievable performance in one game, and then the next, he looks like he's just fighting it. So consistency is an issue, and right out of the gate, he wants this one back. It's on the power play, but Seneca is at the top of the circles, and he uncorks one that beats Hart to the deck, 5-hole. So there's a subtle reminder to close your damn legs. Vegas says, okay, we can do that too. They go on the power play, and it's Dorofeev on the doorstep. EA Sports, it's in the name for that guy. He ties the game up just 2 minutes later. It's looking like this one's going to be a back-and-forth affair all night long. Now, in their Game 2 win, we talked about the importance of Anaheim being able to create offense in different ways from just their counterattack. They need to be able to grind Vegas down on the forecheck and through sustained pressure. And we get some more of that here. The Ducks dump this puck in, and their pressure just forces the Vegas D to rush his play on the backhand and throw it up the wall. Then as the F3, it's the Teemu Selanne himself, Jeffrey Viel, being first to the puck. He gets it off the wall to Granlund streaking in, and it's another iffy one that beats Hart on a weird bounce. 2-1 Ducks going into the second. Now, the playoffs are all about sacrifice and being willing to step in front of a train for your team if you have to, and that's what William Karlsson does here as he gets this puck in the corner. Jacob Trouba, the Trouba train himself, is coming around the mountain, and he's ready to absolutely kill him. You can just see he is looking for blood. He knows he's going to get absolutely blown up on this play, but he stays in the pocket anyways, centers it to Brett Howden, and this guy scores again. Wayne Gretzky in these playoffs. That's his 7th of the postseason. So it stays back and forth. We're next. The Ducks power play, which is first in these playoffs, comes through again. Alex Killorn with the jam play, and it's another one that Hart probably wants back. It leaks through his pads, and Anaheim keeps a 1-goal lead going into the third. Now, another way Anaheim can expose Vegas is taking a page out of Utah's book by exposing the high seam between the winger and the center of a box +1. Utah had some success with this last series, and Anaheim jumps on board here. Now, as this puck is low, Vegas wants to outnumber teams down low to create a congested 5-on-3, and usually that means that all 5 players are tight to one side of the ice. But if Anaheim can escape the pressure and start to move up high like we see here, that seam between the winger and center begins to open up, and so a change of sides becomes really effective for creating space. That's what happens here. Gauthier hits the seam, and Ian Moore gets his first Stanley Cup playoff goal to give the Ducks a 4-2 lead. Quack, quack. Vegas gets a late one, but it's too little, too late, as the Ducks put on a gutsy effort at home to tie this series up at 2, going back to Vegas. So, what did you think about the games? Who surprised you? Who pissed you off? Let us know in the comments down below. Also, we're on Spotify now as well, so if you like listening to just the audio, click the link down below and check us out there. And if you want some more breakdowns for every NHL playoff game, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so that you don't miss a single thing.